All right, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank the Bridgeville Public Library and Aaron Weaver for working with PMC to collaborate and coordinate our programming. This is the first of a number of programs that Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts have. It's entitled Understanding and Navigating the Pennsylvania Courts. We have Judge Zeffie, who is joining us. He is a new judge. We're really excited. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit about, I want to thank our sponsor for this program before I forget, Comcast NBC Universal. They have sponsored our Navigating the Court program for this year, and we very much appreciate it. Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts was established about over 35 years ago, initially as a result of a crisis in the confidence in the judiciary. There had been some, I'll say, financial scandals, and the confidence in our judiciary was at an all-time low. So PMC was established to help support the public's confidence in the judiciary, to look into merit selection of judges as opposed to elections, which we have not had, and to help educate people about the judiciary, what they do and why you should vote for them and what their positions mean. So that's one of our primary purposes of this program, is to help people understand our court system, how you can access it, and to answer questions. PMC provides these educational programs not only for the community. We do programs for journalists, we do programs for attorneys, all about the court system and the laws. We also advocate in Harrisburg in terms of supporting or advocating for the independence of the judiciary. If there are potential threats to the independence of the judiciary, we stand up for them, because judges often can't speak. So I'm going to also give an initial disclosure. Judge Zeffie and I are not giving any kind of legal advice, and Judge Zeffie also is limited in what types of questions he can answer. And so it's important that that the judiciary does have a voice, and we represent that. And these are our upcoming PMC in the community programs. We are across the Commonwealth, and we have a wide range of programs. In Pittsburgh, for example, we actually have a program which is hybrid on October 19th, entitled Necessary Legal Papers. It will be at the Carnegie Library, but also available by Zoom. So today we are going to hit three topics. One will be the structure of our Pennsylvania court system. The next will be informing you about election of judges. And the last will be your role within the Allegheny County courts. So I thought first, before we even begin our structure of our Pennsylvania court system, I would ask Judge Zeffie to explain a little bit, because Judge Zeffie was recently appointed as a common pleas court judge in Allegheny County, and I welcome you, and I'm excited. So I would love for you to give a little bit of explanation as to how that occurred and your background.
Sure. I'll start with, can you guys hear me okay? I put my AirPods back in. Is that working?
Yes, that is.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you, Debbie, for having me, and Michelle and the gang. As Debbie said, my name is Andy Zeffie. I was recently appointed as a judge in the Court of Common Pleas in Allegheny County. I'm assigned to the Civil Division in the Court of Common Pleas. I was nominated by Judge Wolf back in June, I guess officially it was, and then confirmed by the State Senate in July, and officially sworn in late July. So on July 20th, I was sworn in to the Court of Common Pleas, assigned directly to the Civil Division, where I've been thrown in the deep end there. Prior to being appointed, I served as the Allegheny County Solicitor, the Chief Legal Officer for Allegheny County, for about 10 years, where I ran the County Law Department, which is an office of about 45 lawyers handling all the county's various legal needs, putting out fires, both real and imagined, on a daily basis. And so since I've been appointed, what I do mostly on a daily basis, I'm in the general civil docket, and I'm assigned to Housing Court, which was a new court started back in 2019.
Right.
With Judge McGinley, Judge Conley. I get some complex litigation docket cases from Judge Ward.
You are definitely going in and out.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
We'll go back. Is that better?
That's good. I heard about the housing court, and then I heard something about complex litigation.
Sure. Housing will dispense with technology. on the housing court with Judge McGillian and Judge Conley, which is quite active given the end of the rental assistance program these days. And on general docket, motions court, complex litigation cases. The trial term is just ending this term, handling jury trials and things of that nature. So really, really enjoying the job, and then looking forward to talking with you guys tonight.
Great, thank you very much. We actually have a landlord-tenant program that's focused on the entry-level court, I will say, the magisterial. I know that appeals from that court go to you, so.
Yeah.
Thank you. So just a little bit about our court system. It's our Supreme Court is one of the oldest, I'll say is the oldest state Supreme Court, although there's this dispute, but our Supreme Court believes it's the oldest Supreme Court. Pennsylvania, that was, our colony was created the Supreme Court in 1722, and the Allegheny Courthouse was first built in Market Square in 1794. So just a little bit of a differentiation, because why does somebody go into the Allegheny County courts? Why do we use the court system? There's two different paths. One is a civil path and one is a criminal path. Your Honor, do you want to take one and I'll take the other?
Sure. I guess I can take civil, since that's where I am. I would also mention, we have the family and orphans court divisions too. We should mention.
Right.
Family court is a pretty frequent touch for people being involved in the court system, and orphans court is where if you had a will and estate, guardianships and things of that nature. But in the civil division, which is where I'm assigned, that's generally, it's easier to describe the civil division in what it's the others. It's everything else. So if it's not criminal, that's where all your criminal charges and allegations and trials would go. Family is family. Family matters.
I'm just looking to see if there we go. That's better. There's your
there you go. And in family, there you go. Divorce, child support, and all family matters. In orphans court, the wills, estates, adoptions, and guardianships, and pretty much everything else. Civil division is a court of what you call general jurisdiction, so it handles everything else. And what we largely handle, but it is civil disputes between parties. It could be injury cases and medical malpractice, business disputes, contracts disputes, but we also handle things like elections. We run elections court in the civil division, and municipal matters, and real estate matters, all that stuff that doesn't go anywhere else flows through the civil division. And that's where you go to trial in a case that involved money damages, which is where we have only us in the criminal division have juries. If you call for jury duty, you're going to one of those two places. So yeah, we pretty much did handle all the things that the other three divisions don't, which gives us the biggest docket, I think, in the court.
And I'm going to skip back, and and there's a different burden of proof in a civil case versus a criminal case. So there is a stronger burden of proof in a criminal case. The prosecutor has to prove guilt. Oh my goodness, beyond reasonable doubt. Whereas in a civil suit, it's a preponderance of the evidence. It's almost, I like to say, it's about 51%. 50.5%. But criminal case, it's beyond the reasonable doubt. In a criminal case, there is a right to an attorney, whereas in a civil case, there is not a right to an attorney. And there are a lot of pro se litigants or litigants who are not represented in civil cases right now. And so, those are the two, I'll say, general types of cases, right? Everything is civil, but for the criminal almost. And our Pennsylvania court system is known as a triangle here, with our highest court, our Supreme Court. It is the ultimate decider of law with respect to Pennsylvania. Then we have underneath that the Superior and Commonwealth courts, which are also known as our appellate courts. Below that, we have our Court of Common Pleas, and below that we have our magisterial district courts. Our magisterial district courts are really known as our entry level courts for most matters that are $12,000 or below, or for our preliminary arraignments. And so our magisterial district courts are known as our minor judiciary. In Allegheny County, there are 46 magisterial district courts, and the Pittsburgh Municipal Court building is it's like underneath underneath an overpass. There's a lot going on down there, but there's a lot that happens in in that courtroom. We went to visit it. PMC does a bail watch program, so we did a visit to watch some arraignments. As I mentioned, the magisterial district courts address civil actions less than $12,000, summary minor offenses. Many landlord-tenant disputes are handled in the magisterial district court, and preliminary arraignments are handled by magisterial district judges. Traffic offenses. It is known as not a court of record, meaning that if you make an appeal from this court, you start from fresh. And also, I will say, if you are in this court and you want a record, you need to request that there be a court reporter present. And there are no jury trials in this court. You are in front of an MDJ, and he or she, will resolve the matter. Your Honor, do you want to add anything?
No, I don't think so. I think that covers it very well. I would say that, for most people, this is probably the level that you're going to experience most. We get a speeding ticket, or you have a landlord-tenant dispute, or some kind of minor dispute. That's certainly where you're going to start. And then other than that, just to add that any appeals, which everyone would have a right to do from a magisterial district judge decision, goes up to common pleas. And like you said, you start what we call de novo. You sort of start from scratch. If you're not pleased with the outcome of your matter before a district judge, you come up to common pleas.
Right, and you have an automatic right of appeal. I mean, you absolutely can appeal. So it's not there's not a restriction as to when you can or cannot appeal. We briefly discussed the Allegheny Court of Common Pleas. It hears appeals from the minor courts on a de novo basis. As we said, it has a wide range or wide scope, and there are 43 common pleas court judges in Allegheny County. The president judge is Kim Berkeley Clark, and each division has an administrative judge who's in charge of each division. And the Allegheny County court judges have been amazing during COVID in their making sure that the courts are accessible. And I know just Judge Christine Ward has done a yeoman's job in addressing landlord-tenant matters and trying to work with that to help prevent evictions. So, we did discuss this, so we'll keep moving on. So then, once you have a decision, right, by the judge, which would be known as a bench trial, or by a jury trial, a verdict, it could be appealed. Let's put it that way. And if it were appealed, it would be to our intermediate appellate courts in Pennsylvania. And so we have two different kinds of intermediate appellate courts in Pennsylvania. We have a superior court and a commonwealth court. So our commonwealth court is typically addresses matters brought by state agencies, county agencies, taxing authorities. Our superior court would address an appeal from a civil jury trial, or from a criminal court of common pleas. Our superior court has no discretion as to whether or not it can take an appeal. It's an automatic right of appeal. And the Commonwealth Court, while it is an appellate court, is also a court. It's what's called known of original jurisdiction. So the governmental authorities, even our Philadelphia, our SEPTA, can bring their case first in Commonwealth Court. Your Honor, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. I think that's something to keep in mind, that if the Commonwealth Court were to hear appeals involving any government agency, as well as have original jurisdiction over lawsuits brought by or against those agencies for the most part. If you can sue Allegheny County or the city of Pittsburgh in the Court of Common Pleas, but there are certain the state original jurisdiction in most cases lies with the Commonwealth Court. That's right.
So here is our Commonwealth Court as it currently stands. The president judge is Renee Cohn-Jubileer, and we wanted to just give you an example of their responsibilities. So when there's some type of objection to nomination papers, that is heard by the Commonwealth Court. And we'll discuss this a little bit later, but there are the judges' terms are for 10-year terms. So, once the judge is elected, the judge has a 10-year term, and then the judge is what's known as a retention election. So it's a yes or no election for our Court of Common Pleas and our appellate courts. There's a little different election system, and we'll discuss it later for our magisterial district judges. And our Commonwealth Court, the other thing that was interesting is that it is unique to Pennsylvania. There is no other state in the country that has a Commonwealth Court which is focused on, state and governmental litigation, I will say. This is our Superior Court. These are all new pictures. We're very excited. We now have new pictures. And our Superior Court is as we said, it's a court of, if you talk to a Superior Court judge, they will tell you it is the busiest court in the country. It gets the most appeals. And so because it's an automatic right of appeal, they don't have a discretion to decide whether or not they take the appeal. Once it's appealed, the judges can yes or no it, but the case automatically has to go up to the Court of Appeals. And I've listed two examples of recent cases with the Superior Court, which was a very interesting case in 2022, which held that a partial obstruction of a vehicle registration plate is a violation of law, and the police can stop a vehicle. So, it was there. They have a wide range. And then another example has to do with in 2022 has had to do with a nursing home arbitration agreement and finding it unconscionable. So the Superior Court has a wide range of topics that it addresses, and it has different panels or groups of panels that sit across the state. Anything else that Your Honor has to add to this?
No, I think you summed up pretty well. I would just say that people should know that the Superior Court's overwhelming jurisdiction lies with the automatic right to appeal in any criminal case. So that is a tremendous, majority of of the cases they hear come from the criminal context, but they do both criminal and civil cases not involving government entities or government agencies. So you're right. It's got to be, if it's not the busiest court in the country, it's up close. There. That's for sure.
Pretty close to it. Maybe California might have a little, but I'm not even
probably
sure
have a few. Yeah.
Right. Just based on population, but that's it. So then our highest level court in Pennsylvania is our Pennsylvania Supreme Court. I want to take a moment to say that our Chief Justice, Justice Max Baer, unfortunately passed away over the weekend. His death will be a great and tremendous loss to Pennsylvanians. He was a phenomenal jurist and friend of Pennsylvanians from honor courts, and we will miss him. And he's from Allegheny County, so that I do know that the service tomorrow is at Duquesne University. His term as Chief Justice was actually up December 31, and Justice Todd was going to become the Chief President Judge of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and she would be the first female President Judge of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. But our Pennsylvania Supreme Court does have the ultimate authority on matters before the lower courts. The big thing that's different here in Pennsylvania Supreme Court is that it has the discretion to decide to take a case. So it will take a case if maybe it feels as though it's a new issue that hasn't been before the Supreme Court before. It's something that's, it really wants to have everybody understand. There are limited, there are limited categories where it's an automatic review that has to do with penalty. And then we have a unique jurisdiction of our Supreme Court, which is called a King's Bench power. And it's really interesting in that the court can respond or address an issue through what's known as like a brief, a petition that doesn't come to it by a case, doesn't come to it from an appeal, but is just a petition that is filed directly with our Supreme Court requesting that they address an issue. And so, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to add that, yeah, for anyone watching this, that you see that frequently in cases where there's a certain, we see it in election cases sometimes. We saw a number of them in the 2020 election where there were matters that had to be decided on what they knew was a tight timeline. And the Supreme Court knows it's getting there eventually. And so they just skip, sometimes they skip both the common pleas and common and
Right.
superior Commonwealth Court levels and just take it straight up because they know it's coming there anyway. It is unusual, but in cases where they know it's a matter of extreme importance on a short timeline, that's when they frequently exercise that.
Yes, there was just recently a petition, a King's Bench petition filed by Governor Wolf to, I'll say, to challenge a Senate bill that had 5 proposed constitutional amendments. The court actually, there was briefing on it, and the court actually denied the King's Bench petition and said to the parties, file everything in Commonwealth Court and let it proceed, through that fashion. So there have been filings now in Commonwealth Court, but our Supreme Court unfortunately had 7 justices, and most recently elected to our Supreme Court was Justice Robeson. We have elections in odd numbered years in Pennsylvania, and the example of a case recently was the court upholding the constitutionality of mail-in voting. So it's also interesting to note that our Supreme Court has a lot of other responsibilities. It has a tremendous number of supervisory activities. It provides for education of our judges through continuing judicial education programs. It is responsible for the budget of the court system. The justices actually go to the legislature and present a proposed budget that they request the legislature to approve, or legislature decides to do whatever it wants to do on its own. They oversee a judicial conduct board. There are a number of special committees of the Supreme Court, including the rules committees. There are rules of evidence, criminal rules, civil rules, minor court rules. There's just a number of committees that the Supreme Court has, and they are always listing on their website, pacourts.us, when there are openings on these committees, and not all committees require members to be judges or even lawyers. So, I always say to people, like, keep an eye out, because sometimes there are openings for, citizens. The Supreme Court also regulates the practice of law, oversees attorney admissions and disciplines. Okay. So this is we just have a picture of the building that the Supreme Court and, holds its hearings in, and the Superior and Commonwealth Court hears them. It's the City County building, and it's at, Grant and Forbes Avenue. You're
also the home to the civil division there.
Right.
Very, very important to mention.
Yep. Thank you. So as you could see from the pictures of our judges, there are a number of women on the bench in Pennsylvania, and I think it's something that with which we should be very proud. We have 30% of judges in our courts are women. We have a number of women who have been who are currently president judges or have been president judges in the past. And so I think it's a great statistic for Pennsylvania. Okay. So there's a difference between our Pennsylvania state court system and the United States courts. Well, we hear about today was the first day of opening session for the United States Supreme Court. They handle different topics. So our U.S. court system handles court cases involving federal law, or handles cases involving where the plaintiff, the parties, the plaintiff and the defendant, are from different states, and there's the case involved more than $75,000. You also hear about the bankruptcy court that is under our federal court jurisdiction, and sometimes an appeal from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court can be heard by the U.S. Supreme Court. Sometimes the federal courts actually appeal or make a request to our state Supreme Court to help them decide issues relating to the state system of and interpretation. So there's a good relationship, I will say, between our Pennsylvania courts and our Pennsylvania United States District Courts and our Third Circuit. In Pittsburgh, we have a Western District of Pennsylvania United States District Court. There's a Middle District Court in Harrisburg area, and then there's an Eastern District in Philadelphia area. Okay, so I stepped ahead. Okay, so our as I said, our state is divided into 3 districts, and our appellate court, which is so the entry level in our federal system, is our U.S. District Court. If you have an appeal from our district court, it is to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, and that is comprised, as you can see, of New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and Virgin Islands. And the federal courthouse in Pittsburgh is, this is a picture of it. Are there any questions about our state and federal court system?
One thing, Debbie, I want to mention,
Yeah.
if you go back to that last map.
Yep, oh, this one?
If you look there, like a third of the state is the Western District. There are about 15 judges, federal judges in the Western District. I think that's about right. And some magistrate judges in that whole blue section in the Western District. And just to give you a perspective on the traffic in terms of the number of cases that come in, Allegheny County alone has 43 judges. And that's just Allegheny County. I'm not sure what the number of judges is in all those counties in the Western District, but it dwarfs the number of federal judges we have, because that federal court system is a very limited jurisdiction. It's the overwhelming likelihood, if you are involved in the court system, is that you're going to be in a state court. If you're suing or involved in a lawsuit that involves someone from a different state, you might end up in federal court under what they call diversity jurisdiction, where they want to make sure that a person from a different state gets a fair shake, and they're not going to get homered, although I don't think that would happen. But they do allow for federal courts to sit in cases where the parties are from different states. But it's really, really striking the difference in the amount of case traffic that comes into state courts versus federal courts here, and in just about every state. You're way more likely to be in state court than you are ever to be in federal court.
And I think the statistic is, I'm trying to remember, I should have to have this better, but I know that, the number of cases a judge handles in federal court versus the number of cases that judge handles in state court is also a huge difference.
Yep.
So, yep. Okay, so this is just a little bit about election of judges. I touched upon it, but we are coming upon an election year next year in 2023. And as I always say, it is important to learn about the judges, learn about the positions, and vote. It's important to vote every year, but most people don't understand that when they go to the polls in odd number of years, that they're also electing judges. So the terms for our judges are 10-year terms, except for the magisterial district court judges, which are 6-year terms. Again, it's an initial 10-year term for a partisan vote, meaning there's typically a Republican and a Democratic candidate on the ballot. But after the judge has sat as a judge for 10 years, it is a retention vote, and that is a yes or no vote. And it has to do with the whether that judge, you feel that judge has performed their duties according to the judicial obligations. In Allegheny County, the Allegheny County Bar Association has a committee that researches judges, makes recommendations. I always recommend people to go to their website because they provide information about the judges and for elections as well as retentions. The Pennsylvania Bar Association provides a similar review of appellate court candidates and then we PMC holds candidate forums for appellate court candidates, so that people can see who's running and hear them and answer and ask questions. For the magisterial district courts, the judges have to run every 6 years. And the interesting thing is, who gets to be a judge or justice, or who gets to be a magisterial district judge? To be a judge or a justice, you actually have to be an attorney, to be a common pleas or appellate court judge. You have to be a member of the Pennsylvania bar. You have to be a resident in the district for a year. And it is an election, as we said, for 10 years. And the age, there's no term limit. You can run the judge can run as many times as 10 years terms as they would like. But at 75 years old, the judge or justice has to go senior. With respect to magisterial district judges, it is different in that the requirement is that the individual running simply has to be 21 years of age, a resident of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and a resident of the magisterial district for a 1-year period prior to the election. They do not have to be an attorney, but they have to pass an exam. It is as a result of taking a class. And the minor judiciary education board provides a 1-month course on which the attendees have to attend. They have to pass the exam at the end in order to be a magisterial district judge, or the individual who's running could be an attorney admitted to the bar in Pennsylvania. For continuing, just so everybody knows, the judges have to take continuing judicial education. The magisterial district judges have to take continuing judicial education. It is truly, important that the judges stay current in changes in the law. There's a contrast between our state court judges and federal judges. Federal judges are appointed for life, and they do not run for election. There's a process. In Pennsylvania, our senators, get together, make a recommendation to the president. There's an investigation to these individuals. There's hearings. So it is a very different process between federal and state judges. Your Honor, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, nothing that, I think, well, I would. Yeah, a couple things. I think one thing to keep in mind for people is, like, when we see a presidential election, this past presidential election, we see turnout 70-75%. One could argue whether that's low or high given the stakes, but it's 70-75%. You get into midterm elections and even year elections. I know this stuff as county solicitor. I was very involved in a lot of elections. In a good year, a really high turnout year, you might push 50%, maybe. In an odd year election where we elect the judges and magistrates and the courts closest to us, turnout's usually just a tick over 20%.
Yeah.
Just a tick over 20%. So it really is important for people to recognize that when it comes time to electing judges and paying attention to their qualifications, the bar ratings, all those things, that those are the courts you're most likely affected by. And those are the elections that we see the lowest turnout in. So it really is consequential, and something that people, I think, kind of sleep on a little bit in terms of their role. Your vote is almost overvalued, in those odd year elections. It actually counts more in an odd year election to who becomes a judge. So you should take advantage of that because you have more say. The other thing I would mention, the federal system, we wrote, our Constitution was adopted officially, I guess, in 1791, when we appointed federal judges for life at a time when life expectancy was about 55. Okay,
Yes.
So it sort of is an interesting thing to think about, is like, when we appointed them for life, how long were we really appointing them? And that discussion is being had in a lot of places too, and whether we should have a mandatory retirement age or term limits on federal judges is an interesting point, but I think it bears sort of consideration of what was going on in 1791 in terms of how old you had to be and how long you were expected to live. Doesn't get discussed much, but it is a very real thing to think about, what people expected in terms of how long federal judges and Supreme Court justices and things like that would serve.
Yep. It's being thought about now. So as I like to say, can you name a judge for whom you voted? Because many times people go to the polls and they call and ask friends, who they should vote for, as opposed to doing their own, investigation and homework. I get many calls from friends from the ballot box, I'll say, saying, who should I vote for?
Mhm.
So, make sure that you do your homework. Any questions on elections of judges versus life appointments?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, great. So the last part that we just wanted to emphasize is how important, and Judge Zeffie said it, how important your role as a citizen is within our court system. I can't emphasize enough that we count on our citizens of our Commonwealth to be active participants in our democracy, in having it succeed, as the court system succeed. So we have trials, and we have civil jury trials, and we have criminal jury trials, and there's a difference in the number of jurors for each. And when you receive the summons to be on a jury, it's an amazing experience. I can speak. I'm an attorney. I was actually summoned to court for a civil trial, and I thought, oh, why? They're not going to want me to sit. I have a bias, and I sat, and it was really interesting to be in the jury room, to participate in the discussions about the case, and it's something that I really will change how you think about the court system, and increase your confidence in it. Your Honor, do you want to talk about juries?
Yeah, no, I would. One of my roles as a new judge is to greet the juror pool every morning during trial term, and then and during criminal trial term, which is, they don't have trial terms, they constantly do jury trials. But and I impress upon people how important it is that our system depends on it. I tell people every day that I think, everyone points out the flaws in our system, and there are some, and we debate them, and we vote on them, and we argue, and we do the things that we should do in a democracy to improve it. That said, I tell them this when they come serve, and how important it is that we have the worst legal system in the world, with the exception of every other legal system in the world. We have the best legal system in the world. When people come out from under the thumb of oppression or dictatorship, and they look to set up a legal system and a government, they look to our system. It is the best one there is. And at the end of it relies on people doing their civic duty, coming into jury duty, and rendering a fair and impartial verdict. And my experience, both as an attorney and now as a judge, working more closely with the jurors themselves, is how incredibly seriously they take it, and how often I think they get it dead right. I'm always impressed by it. I'm always impressed by jury decisions and the deliberations they seriously went through and come to a decision. It might not be exactly what I would have done, but more often than not, it's pretty close. They don't go off the rails very often. When you present 12 people there to do their civic duty with the facts and the law, they take it seriously, they pay attention, and I think they, for the most part, render really, really good decisions. And whether I think they're good or not is of no consequence. Those are the decisions. That's how our system works. So I hope that people can walk away from jury duty feeling some sense of, I don't know, accomplishment, or feel good about their service and what they did, because I think they should.
Yep, I couldn't agree. I just introduced former Chief Judge of the Third Circuit, Brooke Smith, who actually has spent a lot of time helping foreign countries, establish a jury system. And it's truly, we take for granted, what we have and what so many countries fight for and really try to implement. This is just a little bit more about the jury duty, and encouraging you to. There are limited requests for excusal, and it's definitely, if you demonstrate undue hardship, that is very understandable. And while I touched upon this, again, it's everybody's duty to evaluate judicial candidates, and this is how you should evaluate them. It should be their legal experience, their reputation for integrity, their community involvement, their ongoing educational and professional activities, their compassion and commitment for equal justice. You know, right now, for example, I am sitting on an investigation commission for the Philadelphia Bar Association's Judicial Evaluation and Retention Commission. It's a mouthful. And so we have a thorough investigation. There are 5 of us who are investigating, you know, reaching out and getting over 20 references on this candidate and reading briefs and filings from this candidate and interviewing judges that this candidate has been before, reaching out to community organizations that this individual has, you know, has worked with, served on their boards. But all these go into a decision about a judicial candidate. And this is where we can find information, you know, on Pennsylvania Bar Association, Allegheny Bar Association, and the League of Women Voters all can have information about judicial candidates. You can also do your own research to make sure the individual hasn't been reprimanded by the Pennsylvania Disciplinary Board or the Pennsylvania Judicial Conduct Board. And again, just please vote. And I think we'll skip this slide for tonight. And then just a little bit about self-representation. You know, we at PMC have a phone number for you to reach out to us if you have any questions, but the court system is very friendly. You know, you can go into the clerk's office, ask for assistance in filing documents. The pacourts.us website has forms. The Allegheny 5th Judicial District website has forms, so that there are a lot of resources that one can seek out to help with self-representation. Okay, do we have any questions and answers? But I think that's it. No. Oh, thank you, Michelle. And I want to thank Comcast, NBC Universal for supporting our programming. There's more. Oh, right. But I think the person left.
No, one more.
One more. Yeah. I think
She did.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, if anybody that is on this call, we would love,
Right.
this is our new QR code that we're really trying very hard to gather feedback. And it's really important for PMCs, the fact that we're a 501c3 and we need all of these statistics and numbers for our grants and for our funding. So you can pull up your phone and download this QR code and answer a few questions for us. It would be really helpful.
Right. When you watch this video at home, please feel free to, you know, use your phone and fill out the questions. We don't ask for your name. We only ask for information that our funders ask from us. So, okay. Let's stop sharing. Judge Zeffi, thank you very much for your assistance tonight. Appreciate it. And this
Sure
will
thing.
be on,
Thank you for having me.
you know, on
Thank
our
you.
on our YouTube website and on the Bridgeville Public Library.
We will send you a link as well.
Okay. Sounds
Thank
good.
you for
Appreciate
your
it, guys.
time.
Thank
That was
you.
a fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
Thank
That was
you.
really great.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.